Welcome to Dawg Day Afternoon. I am Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. You can find me on Twitter at GDawg5000. And you're here for Dawg Day Afternoon. It's the betting show where we talk NFL, we give some sports betting advice. I get joined by awesome people like Joe Fann from WynnBet here. We give a few picks along the way. And the main thing that I try to stress, this is a sports betting show. We're not taking ourselves too seriously. We're not going to be doing pro or con on the vax or, politics or any of that. We're just talking straight NFL. We're just having some fun here. So we're going to cover the latest odds in the NFL, some futures odds. And like I said, I am joined by a very esteemed guest today. This is Joe Fann. He is the co-host of Bet to Win with WynnBet, brand ambassador as well for the Wynn in Las Vegas. And I like to call him the King of the Northwest. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, man? I appreciate you having me. It's I don't know about that moniker. I'll take it. I'm very prideful of being from the Northwest, and it's been a fun kind of venture these last couple of months into the sports betting world. I've been following, folks like yourself for quite some time, so really appreciate the invite and looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, and with Joe's, to give a little background, he'll probably talk about it a little bit more later in the show, but recently moved to Las Vegas, real big life career change. And again, just one of those vicarious type of moves where I'm watching from afar being like, man, that would have been awesome if I would have done that. I should have done it, but it's all good. We're going to watch Joe do it, and he's going to be successful as he does it. And we're going to get started here entering week 10, Joe. We do a little segment to kick off the show. Obviously, if this is a sports betting show and a sports show in general, we would be nothing without a few hot takes. And it's a segment I like to call Apparently, where I'm just going to maybe throw out one of the most ridiculous takes you could think of. But I bet there's going to be some merit with it too. And we're going to talk about that here. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, and just that has been noticed by me, at least now that we are at the official halfway mark of the NFL season, apparently Josh Allen might not be good. Look, this is hard to say, especially with the fact that he is right now, I believe, the favorite to win NFL MVP this year. But that Week 9 loss to the Jaguars really just left a bad taste in my mouth for starting to see the first 2 years of Josh Allen again, when his accuracy was around like 55 to 58%. His accuracy is now down to about 63% for the season. Passing numbers are down across the board. And the Bills have lost 2 of the last 3. Joe, is it apparent it is to you as it is to me that Josh Allen might not be that good?
I would rephrase and say he's apparently not as good as he was a year ago. I mean, last year he was arguably the MVP of the league. Now Aaron Rodgers was deserving, but Josh Allen in any other year with those numbers could have easily won the award. He was damn near perfect throughout the season, and you really saw his accuracy numbers really improve. The explosive plays have always been there. We've known he's got one of the strongest arms in the NFL. But he was so good when it was within the rhythm of the offense. Everything short and intermediate, on time, less of the scramble drill that we're seeing now of, him just trying to play superhero. And he had to do that a bit against the Jags. The offensive line was not good. He was pressured 20 plus times. The other Josh Allen, as we've come to know him, but a first round pick in his own right for the Jags, was dominant. He had a fantastic rookie year, but had, struggled with the knee injury in his second year last season. And he's come back really strong here in 2021. He just doesn't get the notoriety because he plays in Jacksonville for good reason. That being said, Josh Allen deserves plenty of the blame because he has regressed a bit this year. He's had a couple of clunkers, one against the Steelers to open the season, and then this one. And even the other performances weren't what we saw last year. Excuse me. I still can't believe the upset. I mean, this is a Jaguars team that came off of getting carved up by Geno Smith and the Seahawks a week prior. And I kind of liked them in that game. I was like, this Seahawks offense is struggling. Geno Smith is very much pedestrian. I think the Jags could potentially hang around. They got boat raced from the jump. And they turn around and only allow – what's crazy is they didn't allow a point in the second half of the Bills, didn't allow a touchdown, and the Bills only got in the red zone one time, which is remarkable for this offense. So it's an inexcusable loss for the Bills. I think they have some questions to answer, certainly. And if you look at their schedule, their best win is against the Chiefs, who I'm comfortable saying isn't a very good football team right now. So they're really a team without a signature win. And they're not going to get one, at least for a couple of weeks, because they play the Jets on Sunday.
Yeah, and the fact that they still have to play the Patriots twice as well, like that, I thought the AFC East might have been wrapped up after that Chiefs win. not so much at this point. And depending on how you read the graphic, depending if you're a Jags fan, you might actually be a little bit more mad because maybe you're a little mad because it was Josh Allen on Josh Allen crime. I know that was probably the most overused joke of the weekend. But yeah, Josh Allen for the Jags just completely tore apart that game. And I mean, I think the one thing I would just say this with merit is that I'm still not sold that Josh Allen is MVP or that he should be the favorite for MVP. Maybe that's what I should have probably used it, is that apparently he still is the favorite for MVP because, and to me, I think it's Brady who is the MVP at this point if we're going to the halfway, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later on, maybe even just later on in this segment. We're going to move on to the next segment now, Joe. Now, with the Titans win over the Rams, that might have been probably the most impressive win of week 9. Apparently, Derrick Henry is replaceable. Titans had 69 yards rushing for this versus the Rams. It didn't even matter. They won by 12. Their defense was the story of that game. AP now could cut AP all day. Adrian Peterson could slot into the workhorse role. He had a touchdown against them, against in my opinion, a formidable Rams run defense. And, the Titans also, if you just look back at that Colts game, Derrick Henry got hurt in the first half and they still came back and won against the Colts there. So, Joe, is it apparent to me as it is to you that Derrick Henry is replaceable in this Titans offense?
Yes, I think all running backs are replaceable. I am of the thought that
even Derrick Henry. That's the thing. Even Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry is as irreplaceable as any running back in football. He is the most valuable running back in all of football. I am willing to give him all of the flowers that he deserves for being an absolute monster. But there is a but. Running backs are replaceable. We've seen it countless times. Do they miss him? Certainly. Are they a better team with him? Certainly. Is their season over losing him compared to what it would be like if they lost Ryan Tannehill? You can't even compare the two. So that's why I have a hard time with the Derrick Henry should be in the MVP conversation, because he's not even as valuable as his own quarterback, let alone, countless quarterbacks around the league, countless receivers, defensive ends, top corners. Again, that's to no fault of his own. That's just the way the NFL has gone in terms of running backs. And you can find good ones as an undrafted free agent year after year. Look what D'Ernest Johnson did a couple of weeks ago for the Browns against the Broncos. He looked like an all-pro. And again, that's not taking anything away from anybody. The Browns are a better team with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt than they are without them, obviously. But out of every position in football, it is the easiest to replace, and it's not that close, even for the great ones.
Well, I think the MVP part is what stood out to me when people were kind of maybe trying to bring that back to in vogue of a running back winning MVP. And I was trying to explain to people a running back hasn't won MVP since 2012, and that was AP, Adrian Peterson, the man who was replacing him right now. And he rushed for over 2,000 yards. And part of the reason was the narrative he was coming off a torn ACL. So it was almost like, wow, he's superhuman. Whereas Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards last year and wasn't even a top 3 candidate for MVP. So I'm just saying that the shift of voting for MVP as well has changed. So yeah, just to put the MVP off.
And I understand the issues people have with the word most valuable, the words most valuable. Mm-hmm. But if we're taking that literally, which we should, it's called the MVP award for a reason. You can't talk about value with a running back the same way you talk about value with a quarterback. It's the most important position in all of sports. So inherently, that position is going to, except for, outlandish exceptions, which I don't foresee happening potentially ever again, or at least not often, it's going to be a quarterback. It's so much different than the Heisman. Heisman is strictly best player, who had the best season, and that can be comparative to other players who play their positions and all of that. That's different than most valuable. And so that's, we can have that conversation, but as long as we're talking about MVP, a running back can never be in consideration.
And what's funny too is after that injury to Henry and Tannehill's win over the Rams and Titans over the Rams, and then as well as the Colts, I believe he has moved up now to at least the top 12 option now for MVP. I saw him hovering around the plus 4,000 odds realm, depending on the book. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one.
I'm looking at it now. We still have it plus 10,000.
Plus 10,000 for Ryan Tannehill. Woo!
You can still get him at plus 10,000. He's below, or he's in the same ballpark as Carson Wentz and Ryan Tannehill. Or sorry, Carson Wentz and Kirk Cousins.
Oh wow. Okay, so if you haven't signed up for a book yet right now, you might want to sign up for WynnBet and get those odds, because the second half of the season, if the Titans end up going, let's say 13-4, Ryan Tannehill is going to be a top 3 candidate for MVP at this rate. So I would be taking a look at that ASAP. All right, well, moving on to the next subject now, Joe. And I had just mentioned that I think Tom Brady should be the MVP, or at least the MVP favorite at this point. But this has to do with who I think the actual MVP is at the halfway point of the season. And apparently, Lamar Jackson should win NFL MVP. 3 fourth-quarter comebacks just in the last 5 games over the Colts, the Chiefs, and the Vikings just this past weekend. His accuracy is up year over year. They're 6-2 in the standings. He's probably going to rush for 1,300 yards this year at this rate. He's got 600 yards in 8 games, so I think he can get to about the 1,300 mark. And he's going to destroy his passing yards in a season mark if he continues at this pace. Joe, is it apparent to you as it is to me that Lamar Jackson should win NFL MVP right now?
Well, you just said Tom Brady should win NFL MVP.
Well, I think he should be favored for MVP. Just from a betting odds standpoint.
I think I agree. Absolutely. Lamar Jackson means the most to his team. You want to talk value. He is their running game. He is their passing game. He has been clutch in big time moments. He didn't play his best game of the season against the Vikings, a couple of turnovers, but man, leading another double-digit point comeback and winning that game in overtime. His late game heroics have been up there with anybody this year. And so you look at the injuries they've dealt with, and the numbers he's still putting up, it's remarkable. And so I'm very impressed with what he's done. I think Tom Brady is certainly deserving given the numbers he's put up, but my vote right now would go to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and I think that's really what I'm getting at, is maybe just Lamar being the halfway mark, I guess, MVP if the voting was to close today, just because of where the Ravens are, especially you could see that kind of people were starting to maybe doubt Lamar Jackson a little bit coming into the year of, defenses have figured him out. And then that week 1 loss to the Raiders, and people were already starting to kind of pour dirt on his grave. And he has done nothing but just look spectacular to me every week. Even that Lions game, they probably had no business in winning that game. But he was the one who was rushing for those extra first downs and getting even Justin Tucker within 60 yards of range to be able to kick a field goal. So again, I just think that at the halfway mark, I think Lamar Jackson is my MVP. Going forward, I do think Tom Brady is the best bet, mainly because even on a bye week, he still leads the league in NFL touchdown passes. And I believe now he is second in passing yards, just behind Matthew Stafford. So, and I can only imagine in the second half of the season, especially with the Bucs schedule, that he's going to continue. I think he's going to have at least 50 touchdown passes this year, just at this rate. All right, now we're going to look at some futures odds. We're going to stick with the Ravens, actually, Joe. And I think this is a good segue to them, because the Ravens have been slowly creeping up the boards on a lot of different futures markets right now. So for the Baltimore Ravens, we're going to take a look at some of these futures, and I wanted you to decide with me, if we had to bet today, which of these 4 would you feel comfortable putting a unit on? So right now their odds are plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. We just talked about Lamar for MVP. He's at 11-1. John Harbaugh, Coach of the Year, at 22-1, and the Ravens to win the AFC just to get to the Super Bowl at plus 450. Joe, of those 4, which one of those would you feel comfortable putting a unit on?
We just touched on Lamar Jackson MVP, but that's where I would go. And I think John Harbaugh, again, continuing to navigate this injury-riddled roster has been really impressive. And then I think you look on top of that, continually putting his quarterback in situations to succeed. The way they have overhauled, I know he's already won a Coach of the Year award for this, but overhauling their offense and catering it to what Lamar Jackson does best, as opposed to the other way around, making Lamar Jackson fit to what he did traditionally, I think he continually deserves a lot of credit for it. I think Mike Vrabel, I think Cliff Kingsbury are other Coach of the Year candidates. And so for me, I would lean Lamar Jackson MVP, but I think both of them are worthwhile bets. I just don't think they have enough punch, especially defensively. They miss Marcus Peters so dearly in order for this team to be worth betting on from a Super Bowl standpoint, or even to get there. But you look at the other teams in the AFC, my goodness, there's no one that really sticks out to you and makes you say, gosh, I could make a case for the Browns, the Ravens, the Titans, the Bills, the Chargers, if they ever figure it out defensively a bit, the AFC is wide open. So I guess from that standpoint, I could sell myself on any of them, but I'll stick to my guns at Lamar Jackson for MVP.
I'm sticking with you as well with the MVP. And I think the one thing I would tell people, if you are going to decide between Super Bowl and AFC odds, I would just take the Super Bowl at plus 1,000 if I was doing this, because I feel like no matter who they play in the NFC, they're going to be an underdog as well. But they're not going to be that much of an underdog to make it a difference between plus 450 and plus 1,000. So you're probably only going to get like plus 110, plus 120. It's not going to be a huge underdog if they were to play like the Bucks or the Rams, maybe the Rams, because the Rams are playing technically at home. But you're not going to see more than like a field goal spread. So the money line odds, you're probably not going to get better than maybe plus 120, plus 130. I would rather have the extra odds and just go for the plus 1,000. And that way you have them riding right into the Super Bowl, and then maybe you can get a decent hedge opportunity. But yeah, out of those four, I agree with you. I think we should be seriously considering Lamar Jackson right now at 11-1. Okay, next team near and dear to your heart, Joe. It's the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, their futures, it doesn't look great on the Super Bowl market, but I am intrigued on a few others here. To win the Super Bowl sitting at 150-1, just to win the NFC sitting at 80-1, to win the NFC West at 65-1, but to make the playoffs at plus 310. Now, even the most confident, I guess, or optimistic Seattle Seahawks fan might be a little troubled to justify a Super Bowl bet at plus 150-1 rather. But could you make a case for them to make the playoffs at plus 310?
Absolutely. So to me, of those four, I'm looking at it. I mean, the Seahawks win the NFC West is a waste of money. The Cardinals and Rams are just going to be too good to catch up. Winning the NFC for the same reasons you just used for the Ravens and the AFC, you may as well just take the plus 150 or 150-1 on the Super Bowl. Should they get there, you can hedge very comfortably and get a nice little payday regardless. I don't think they're going to get there. I think they're too limited a team across the board. But to make the playoffs at plus 310, that's money well spent, I think, at 3-1 or just over 3-1. Mm-hmm. The NFC is very top heavy, and then it's kind of a mess when you get to the wild card spots. If the playoffs started today, and they don't, was stupid to even talk about, but the 4-4 Atlanta Falcons would be the number 7 seed. And so you can't tell me that the Seahawks at 3-5 don't have a chance to, you don't have to run the table by any stretch. There's a lot of season left to be able to overcome the Falcons and the other kind of middle of the pack NFC teams to claim the 6th or 7th seed in a wild card spot.
I'm with you, man. And I think that's why,
especially with Russell Wilson coming back this week
against Green Bay, who may not probably have Rodgers to pay. I mean, the way that the line is currently baked right now is it's kind of looking like Rodgers might come back and play. He's supposed to be approved by Saturday, but either way, I still like the Seahawks in this matchup. Now, going back to the playoffs bet, I'm with you. That's why I included it, because I thought it might be a little bit of a layup. I thought maybe just maybe you might still have the Seahawks fandom and you might want to try to pitch me a Super Bowl bet. But I wanted to include that playoffs bet at plus 310 because, again, they're only a game back of the wild card spot. And it's not like the teams ahead of them are like really just, like it's like you said, the Falcons and, shout out to Ian Mack and, his Falcons. But let's be real, it's Atlanta. So I'm with you, man. To make the playoffs at 310, I think that's the bet to make of the four. If you were feeling dangerous, maybe you would take the NFC bet at 80-1. It's a gauntlet for a reason. And if this was maybe they were having the 1 seed and you're getting at like 30-1 odds or something like that to be able to host all the playoff games in Seattle, maybe I can make a case. But going on the road to win 3 consecutive playoff games against arguably stronger competition, that's tough. That's going to be tough for me to justify. All right, we're going to move on to our third team now, a team that you're familiar with from Super Bowl 49, but it is the New England Patriots. Big win this past weekend over the Panthers, now sitting at 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. Mac Jones, not the favorite yet for Offensive Rookie of the Year, sitting at plus 350 behind Jamar Chase. Patriots to win the AFC, sitting at 20-1. And the bet that I'm probably the most into is the winning of the AFC East at plus 450. Joe, of these four, are you willing to bet a unit on it?
Yeah, I think to win the AFC East is the best bet. Mac Jones for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Given that he's a quarterback, it could happen. But I think it's going to require a Jamar Chase injury. Jamar Chase is on pace to set records as a rookie. He should absolutely be the winner, and he's not close. I mean, if Mac Jones is 2, Jamar Chase is a distant number 1, and deservedly so. Mm-hmm. He has been an absolute monster. And you look at Mac Jones, I would argue the second half of Monday night's game of Justin Fields for the Bears against the Steelers was more impressive than anything Mac Jones has done to this point. And that's not to take away from Mac Jones. He's been exactly what they've hoped for as a rookie. He's been a game manager. For the most part, he's made good decisions and has limited turnovers. He's worked well in sync with Josh McDaniels in terms of just being on time with the screens, and all of that, the underneath stuff. But he's not necessarily wowing you. He's not the reason why they're winning games. They just smoked the Panthers, and he had 130 yards passing or something, and 1 touchdown, 1 pick. So I think, just pump the brakes on the Mac Jones hype in terms of competing with Jamar Chase. But as we've seen, Buffalo's a flawed team. New England, to me, it took me a while to take them seriously. And if they beat the Browns on Sunday, then I think I'll have to be bought in and say, this is the week to get that bet in to win the AFC East, because if they win against the Browns, those odds won't be nearly as good. I'd guess they're cut in half if they do beat the Browns at home. So that to me is the best option. I still think they're just too limited offensively, to win games in the playoffs. But I guess crazier things have happened, and doubting Bill Belichick is usually unwise.
Well, and I think the issue too is just even this upcoming matchup in Week 10, facing the Browns while the Bills get to lick their wounds and play the Jets. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just like one of those, like, you're already a couple of games back, and if you don't win this game this week, they already have an easy matchup. They're going to go ahead another game. So that's obviously the biggest issue with the AFC East bet. But the fact that they still have to play the Bills twice, and if they just keep pace with them, it looks very good. Now, Mac Jones, my issue with him with Rookie of the Year is obviously because of Chase. But I feel like it's the guy right behind him. I honestly think Najee Harris has been, if not as good as Jamar Chase, but basically has been the second best rookie all year, in my opinion, of Najee Harris with the Steelers. He's top 5 for all running backs in catches. He's right up there for touchdowns with running backs. He is basically the offense for Pittsburgh, and that he's going to be used quite heavily. I'm not saying he's quite in the Derrick Henry role of like 30 carries a game, but he is right there as far as being a workhorse back, a 3-down back. And if the Steelers continue to kind of dig themselves out of this hole and now sitting at 5-3, and Najee Harris continues to be as effective as he is, I think it's just going to be between Chase and Harris when it comes down to it by the end of the season, unless the Patriots just run the table and win the rest of their games and then win the AFC East, which again, I just feel like is way less of probability. Now, winning the Super Bowl of 40-1, not going to go that far. I would maybe consider the AFC at 20-1, like if we were just looking at a crazy long shot bet, just because it is the type of team that I do kind of trust to pull off a road upset in the playoffs, even if I don't think offensively they are as capable as other teams. But that's about it. Again, I feel like I'm kind of drawing at straws here. So that's why out of all of them, I'm with you on the AFC East at plus 450. You could talk me into an AFC bet at 20-1. Don't love it. And the Mac Jones one, I'm still not sold on Mac Jones. I think it's Jamar Chase and Najee Harris.
I agree with that. I think Harris should be above Mac Jones as well.
All right, so those are the 3 teams we decided on. Lamar Jackson, NFL MVP at 11-1. Seahawks to make the playoffs at plus 310. And we both decided as well the AFC East at plus 450. We're going to look at Week 10 now. We just actually talked about that Patriots game. Browns at the Patriots. Patriots are sitting at -2. 3 other games that I had my eye on for Week 10. Vikings at the Chargers. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites. Falcons at the Cowboys. Cowboys are -9, maybe even up to -9.5 now. And then, of course, the Chiefs at Raiders. A nice little AFC West matchup. Raiders home dogs at plus 2.5. Joe, I sent you these 4 games before the show today, but of these 4 games, do any of those kind of start to set off the alarm bells of ones that you're going to be betting for this Sunday?
Yeah, I'm on the Raiders. I won't take the Chiefs. I refuse to bet the Chiefs. I think in general, they have they have been a team that just has been bad. And so getting points, especially if it gets to 3, it makes it a no-brainer for me. The Vikings Chargers is kind of an avoid spot. I don't trust the Chargers right now. I watched that Eagles Chargers game. The whole time I'm thinking, gosh, I'm so thankful I didn't bet this game because that was an unreal sweat, whichever side you were on. And I imagine no matter which way it ended, you were feeling like you were on the right side of that game and got unlucky, and justifiably so. The Falcons getting 9, I think it's up to 9.5 on WynnBet, is a ton of points. So I like the Falcons. But for me, the Browns getting points, I just think they're a better team. The Browns were my trendy Super Bowl pick before the season. I think on Sunday against the Bengals, and you don't want to overreact to a game, just one game. But at the same time, I don't think it's an overreaction when they're still road underdogs against the Patriots. I think they're a better team largely across the board with Nick Chubb being healthy. Baker Mayfield, for all of his flaws, spreads the ball around better than most quarterbacks in the NFL. I think it was 8 guys caught a pass and none had more than 4 receptions against those Bengals. They play defense. Myles Garrett is the defensive player of the year. He's a freak. And then you look at what the secondary showed against the Bengals with Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Troy Hill, John Johnson, arguably the best secondary in the NFL. So I am in on the Browns. I never wavered when they lost a couple of tough games. They should have beat the Steelers if not for a Jarvis Landry fumble and then another drop on a potential game-winning drive. Very easily could have beat the Chargers if not for Justin Herbert's late game heroics. I'm in on this team, and to me, that'll be a smash spot for me.
Yeah, and I think the big issue, the only thing that does Nick Chubb being out bother you at all? I don't know if you saw the news this morning. I think I saw that he might have tested positive for COVID. I'm not 100% certain. I have to double check. I know. I don't want to break. Yeah, I don't want to break news here. Well, I'm just looking at the live line right now. It's still sitting at Patriots -1.5 at some of the books that I'm looking at right now. So clearly they knew that. Maybe they don't really care, like if whether Chubb factors into the spread or not.
I'm still on.
Yeah, but I think Ernest Johnson has proven that he can be just as effective, and I think the OBJ drama being out the door is going to springboard this offense as well. The only thing that obviously concerns me is just what's going to happen with the running game. I think Chubb, I am fairly certain, not that I really pay attention to guys' vaccination statuses or anything like that, but fairly certain he can come back if he has 2 negative tests before Sunday. But either way, that's kind of where I was leaning to before that news this morning. And now that I've kind of seen that, I'm like, okay, let me see how that shakes out first before I nail down a pick. The game that I actually do enjoy that I was actually going to look at is the Vikings. God, they should have beat the Ravens this past weekend. I was still so sour about that. And the fact that the Chargers just cannot stop the run. You watch Jalen Hurts and pretty much the corpse of Jordan Howard just run up and down on that team. And Dalvin Cook didn't look that great against Baltimore this past week. I think that was more of the defense more so than him. And I think he could just have a huge game against them. I think your issue is probably the same as mine of whether or not it's like, what side do we take here? Because both of those teams are so prone to fourth quarter brain farts that you just don't feel good if it's within 7 points in a fourth quarter. So I'm right there with you. Now the Falcons, I'm not going to lie, I'm actually considering their money line. And I hate to say this, and it's mainly just because of how bad Dak looked. I mean, I know that it's one game, but it's just, there's something about Dak, like when this offense isn't clicking, when Dak isn't there, and it's like, the timing was clearly off against Denver. They tried to go for it twice on 4th down in the first half and just got stuffed at their own goal line. For me, I'm just like, you know what? Falcons +9 is probably the safer pick. That one, I just see juice, and I just see plus odds, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to take the Falcons here because this is such a team that matches up well and that can pick this team apart. And I'm with you on the Raiders. I'm probably going to take Raiders money line over 2.5 or 3. Even if it was 2.5 or 3, I would still take the money line in the spot just because I love a good home dog. Chiefs have not looked good really in, I don't know, a year, maybe since the Super Bowl, maybe since week 1, second half against Cleveland, maybe is probably the best example. But yeah, they haven't looked good since. And the Raiders, even though they have a ton of turmoil going on, right from coaching to players, still like them overall. I like their team. I like their defense. I like the way that they're able to run the ball, and the Chiefs can't stop the run at all. I think Josh Jacobs could have a big game. I think he could have probably 2 touchdowns in that game. So yeah, I think I'm with you right there. Is there anything of these 4 games that you're looking at as well outside of the Browns and Patriots, or maybe even the Falcons Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm siding with you on all of it. I like the Raiders. They should have beat the Giants. They played a pretty poor game for their standards. I mean, they missed a chip shot field goal, a pick six. They miss a wide open touchdown to Darren Waller. They go 1 of 6 in the red zone. They lose the turnover battle 3-1. They still only lose by a touchdown on the road after what had been a very tumultuous week, a heartbreaking week, and one where you can kind of give them a pass for not being at their best. Mm-hmm. And it's not like they laid an egg either. So I'm all about taking the Raiders here, getting points as a home underdog. Derek Carr has been tremendous this season. That defensive line is one worth believing in with Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue. I'm there. Really the only game I'm avoiding. And I like, again, the Falcons. I think I like the sprinkle on the money line there. I'm not super worried about the Cowboys. I'm willing to give them one pass. I think they were a team that hadn't really laid an egg yet this season. And so it was their worst day comprehensively, and they got whooped accordingly. But it's like when you block a punt and the other team somehow retains possession afterwards, you just know it's a bad day for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not willing to bail on the Cowboys yet, and clearly Vegas isn't either, because 9 points, and again I think it on WynnBet it's up to 9.5 is a ton. So I still like the Falcons here to cover. But other than that, I mean, the only game I'm avoiding is Vikings Chargers, because I just can't deal with the stress of either of those teams choking late and costing me money. I think they're both of them are just so unreliable.
Yeah, I think right now, out of the four, I think right now Raiders money line is probably our favorite pick of the two, just as far as consensus goes. And And speaking of Las Vegas, this is a question I just wanted to ask you off to the side. I just thought of it now, and really, I'm just curious on your experience. So you just moved to Las Vegas recently. A lot of people in our industry, or even aspiring content creators, or, it's the Mecca. They want to move to Las Vegas and become a full-time sports bettor or content creator or whatever, just being in the sports betting space. And I wanted to ask you a question of what was the biggest difference, or at least maybe adjustment or surprise, that happened with you of moving from like a place like the Northwest and like Seattle area and then moving to Vegas, like maybe something that surprised you when it comes to adjusting to living in the Sin City?
Man, I don't know if there's been a surprise. It's been pretty much as expected. I think there's just moments where, whether you have a buddy in town or you're kind of just out on the strip or downtown Vegas, and you see different things, and you're just like, I live here. This is wild. It's less like a surprise and more of like, gosh, I never thought I'd be living in Las Vegas, and here I am at age 32, like trying to figure it out. So that's where I would say I've kind of been at. I'm like 15 minutes away from the strip, so I'm a bit removed. I live in a great area, trying to build a network, all that, in terms of just having people around, because I didn't really know a whole lot of people when I moved here. But no real surprises. I was pretty eyes wide open. I'd been to Vegas several times, so I knew what I was getting myself into.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And I think that's what people who are watching or listening, like, that's what they want to hear is like, was it like, I think it would suck if you were starting up the story, you're like, oh my God, it was a nightmare. Getting an apartment was trash, blah, blah, blah. No, it sounds like it was very welcoming and accommodating for you, which is great to hear. And is very encouraging for anybody else who is maybe like thinking of following in your footsteps and trying to maybe kind of make a name in the space like that. So again, kudos to you, and hats off to you being able to do that.
I appreciate
it. All right, we're gonna end off the show here soon. Now we're gonna do a rapid fire Q&A. Now, usually before the show, I share all the details and information, at least just like what we're going to talk about, with the guests beforehand, so that way they can prep notes. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of stats. It's only fair. This segment, I do not do that. We make sure that we get as many cutting edge questions and ones that are going to tickle the brain here. And we're going to start it off here. And these are rapid fire, Joe. So first thing that comes to your head, you go with it.
Got it.
Okay. We always start off the rapid fire Q&A with the layup question. Joe, question one, who's winning the AFC North?
The Bills.
AFC North, not AFC East.
Oh, stupid Joe. The Ravens.
Ravens. All right. That's actually only the second Ravens pick of our 9 shows so far. Most of it has been Browns. I think one person might have went with the Bengals, trying to be a hot take artist. All right. Question number 2, Joe. Being a Seahawks fan, have you forgiven Pete Carroll yet for Super Bowl 49?
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to take that as a no.
No.
Yeah. Sure. If you couldn't say yes right off the hop, then there's still baggage there. I could feel it through digitally. right in my chest.
Yeah.
All right. So, Pete Carroll, you're on notice. Joe is still not a fan. All right. Question number 3. This one's called F, Marry, Kill. I'm going to present to you 3 people. You have to decide if you're going to F them, marry them, or kill them. First person is a person who thinks Ken Griffey Jr. was overrated as a baseball player. Person number 2, someone who demands that you marathon watch Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones series once a month. Person number 3, someone who doesn't like sports betting because it impacts the integrity of the game.
Oh man. I guess the background is I've never seen a Ghostbusters or Indiana Jones movie. I don't really have a desire to watch Ghostbusters. I'm down to watch Indiana Jones. I need to. I mean, I've heard they're great. I like Harrison Ford. Oh man. Okay, so we're certainly killing whoever says Ken Griffey Jr. is overrated as a baseball player.
Good
Be
one.
gone. I guess I will F the person who doesn't believe in sports betting because do it, move on.
The game.
That's it. And then I'll marry the person who wants to. I love get some popcorn, glass of wine, glass of whiskey, binge movies. I'm in on that. That's a no-brainer. So I'll marry that person. I'm
like probably more shocked that you haven't watched Ghostbusters at all. At least just the first one. Like don't bother with the second one yet, or don't the new remakes. Especially I think the newest one is coming out like this month or next month. The first one is definitely worth your time. It was a movie that I watched probably once a week, pretty much my entire childhood, and look what I became. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
Yeah. All right. Question number 4. Can't have you on here without a Twilight question, Joe. You team Edward or team Jacob?
Oh gosh. Team Jacob. He's hotter.
Ooh. Werewolf. All right.
I saw the first movie and I never saw the other one. So I'm very much, I just know Jacob's super hot. So I'm in on Jacob.
I think that's a fair assessment. All right. Question number 5. Moving over to the NBA. Who's more likely to win the NBA championship this year? The Miami Heat or the Golden State Warriors?
Oh, I'm going to go with the Warriors. I mean, they're 8 or 9-1 right now. Mm-hmm. Klay Thompson hasn't even come back. Steph Curry's going to win the MVP. I believe on their best day, they have more than the Heat do. The Heat might be more complete. They might have a deeper bench. But even with that, I mean, I love Bielitsa. I love Otto Porter coming off the bench. Jordan Poole is coming to his own. He's probably going to go back to the bench when Klay Thompson comes back. To me, yeah, the Warriors. I really enjoy the Heat. I mean, you have Tyler Hero coming off the bench as a 6-man is a pretty good spot to be in. I love the addition of Kyle Lowry. But I love Bam, love Jimmy Butler. But I still think, Steph and Klay can win you games on their own in a way that I don't think anyone outside of Jimmy Butler can on that team.
Sure. Yeah. And I think it could be a hypothetical NBA Finals matchup as well. I was looking at them more just because you can get them at 10-1 or more at most books to win the NBA championship, and you're not wasting your money on trying to invest on 2-1 favorites like the Nets or the Lakers to a lesser extent. But yeah, of those two, I think I'm with you on the Warriors just because I feel like we're seeing the ceiling of the Heat right now. Like this is what they are when they're playing, in my opinion, at their best. Whereas with with the Warriors, we're seeing 8-1 or 9-1, and we still don't even have arguably a top 5 shooting guard of all time, maybe even the second best shooter of all time, depending on how you feel about Klay in the lineup. And even Draymond Green has looked pretty good so far this year. He's not looking slowed down. He's not being relied on to score as much. The rookies are developing as well. They haven't even had to use James Wiseman at all this year. So again, I just think where they're at and where they can be, the Warriors still have a lot more.
Imagine if they didn't waste that pick.
Well, I mean, it is kind of intriguing to think of LaMelo Ball running down the court right now with him. It would be insane. All right, now question number 6: Ravens Dolphins Thursday night football. Ravens are -7. Which side are we taking here?
The Ravens, I guess.
I think I'm taking.
I think the Ravens are a flawed team. So
it can be
7 points is so many. This just feels like backdoor cover city. I will probably stay away from it. I will probably watch it kind of maybe out of the periphery and I'm not super concerned with it. Just not a matchup I really care about. If it ends up being close, great. But I can't get myself to bet. To me, it seems like a perfect start of a teaser card. Get it down to essentially a pick 'em, and start it that way with the Ravens is where I'd
To
probably go.
me, that's a perfect game for props. Touchdown scores,
Yeah.
yardage props. Like I'm already kind of looking at Mike Gesicki and
Yep.
Rashad Bateman. Those guys are sitting around the plus 220, plus 250 range. I mean, if I had to pick gun to my head, I'm taking the Ravens -7 because they're the Dolphins. They're not even the Dolphins, man. There's no defense. There's no D on that team. They are the
Dolphins,
Dolphins.
I like that.
They cannot play. So now, question number 7. Joe, someone offered you free season tickets for life to the Seattle Kraken, but that means there's no hope for a Supersonics NBA return. Would you take them?
Absolutely not. It wouldn't even. You could tell me I can never go to a Kraken game in my life if it means getting the Sonics back. It's just different. I grew up with the Sonics, man. I'm a huge hoop head. I love ball, and I miss having a team that I care about. NBA props, player props kind of keep me engaged with the NBA. Otherwise, I just have a hard time really caring without being able to watch a team that I feel invested in. So, yeah, that's an easy one. I want the Supes back all day.
Yeah, because I'll give you my personal story. Like, obviously, I watched Supersonics since I was a kid. Like, I'm 37, watched them a ton. And I'm an Expos fan. I grew up a Blue Jays and Expos fan, but my heart was always with the Expos. And I've missed them dearly since 2004 and just destroyed me inside. Didn't really talk about it too much to watch the Nationals win that World Series. Obviously, it's not even the same team and same prospects and everything else. But, first season being OKC in 2008, did you feel like an affinity or like an accompaniment to that team? Were you in your mind thinking like, that's my team? And did you root for OKC the first year that they were there? Some people do that.
Absolutely not.
Because, for example, I grew up Quebec,
Oklahoma City.
Oh no!
My only rooting interest in the NBA is whoever's playing Oklahoma City in the playoffs. Like, period.
Wow. Okay, so I'm
so grateful that they never won a ring with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. Like, now my hate subsided a bit because the team is just it's blown up. But they are cursed. They're never going to win one. At least not till the Sonics come back.
Okay,
you want to get me started on an NBA rabbit hole? The fact that they moved. People forget that the Kings, the Maloof brothers, were sold to Steve Ballmer and Chris Hansen. Deal done, signed, sealed, delivered. And the NBA vetoed it. Where was that for the Sonics when they were moving to Oklahoma City? So I'm very bitter. RIP David Stern, not kind to talk ill about someone who's no longer with us, but not a fan of his. Clay Bennett is public enemy number 1 in Seattle, and Oklahoma City, by far, it's like Houston Astros number 2, Oklahoma City number 1 by a long shot.
Just for reference to anybody who's watching, my final question was going to be, please explain to everyone the pain of losing a sports franchise like from your hometown, like the Seattle Supersonics, and I was going to give you the floor. I didn't even have to ask you. You just went into it, and it was awesome. Like, that was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because it sounds just as jaded as I was, and I completely I feel the pain, but it's warranted pain.
It's excruciating. Especially, it's not just not to say one city losing a franchise is different than another city losing a franchise. They had just drafted Kevin Durant. And I got to see him win Rookie of the Year in a Sonics uniform. And then they draft Russell Westbrook, and there's a picture of Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, both in Sonics jerseys. James Harden comes. I mean, it's just like excruciating. Oh, I hate Oklahoma City, man. I hate Oklahoma City.
So now, to end the show, as I transition to the outro here, and we watch Joe go on to work just so mad. But Joe, before we go, I want you to let people know how they can find your work, what you've got going on, how they can follow along with you on social media, because again, you have some awesome info and information, and your sports betting takes are usually spot on. Joe, share what you got for us.
I appreciate that. You can find me at Joe_Fan on Twitter. The host of the Bet to Win podcast. That's WYNN, with my host Claudia Bellafato for WynnBet. We're having a lot of fun. Again, we got a brand new studio in the Wynn Las Vegas. It's an incredible space. Had a lot of fun, getting different guests, doing shows, venturing deeper into, I've always had kind of a toe dipped in the pool of sports betting, and now I've kind of dove in head first. And it's been a lot of fun. I really just love talking ball. And when you add the kind of betting layer to it, it just makes it a lot more fun. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I appreciate you having me, man. It's been a really fun conversation. Been a fan of yours for a long time, and yeah, I mean, I just can't thank you enough.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Well, Joe Fann, find him at WynnBet. Make sure to follow him, Joe_Fann. That's fans with 2 N's on Twitter, rather. I want to thank you all for watching Dawg Day Afternoon. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. Bon chance.